look, if you're going to give. Welcome to the beautiful city of Athens, the gateway to the Tennessee Valley, a city rooted in deep community relationships and built on a rich tradition of small local business and the very best of the human spirit. As Athens embraces the future, the signs of progress are in full bloom. Join us as we discover the bright spots in this charming southern city that we call home. This is Hometown Heartbeat, Athens. What's going on, everybody? Zach Walker here, with Molly Teasley on day whatever 1,373,462 and 12.
22nd.
The what?
And I'm gonna guess 22nd.
No, it's significantly more than 22nd days.
Oh,
22 days. But Connor, how you doing, buddy? Connor, our remote producer from his home there on the Green Acres there. Monkey grass to you. How you doing, buddy?
Doing good. Good to see you all. Happy Monday.
Hey, that's more than we've gotten from Connor. Usually it's like, hi. That's good, man. Good. How was your weekend, buddy? Did you do anything fun other than stay in your house and do nothing?
No, we almost panicked on yesterday with all the severe weather, but luckily, we had a nice Easter. Nice Easter with the family that was getting ready to bunker down in the safe room.
There you go. Well, bunkering down in the safe room, that's kind of a big deal. Everybody did that yesterday. I'm going to pull Connor out of the audio here so he can just do his job, but it's good you had a good weekend. Yes, the severe weather was something yesterday. Let me tell you, I'm one of those people that takes severe weather very seriously. I like to, call me a prepper, I guess, but you'd rather have it and not need it than need it and not have it, and so we got our stuff ready. In 2011 they were given values of 11, which was that was the year of the big long track tornadoes and all that, and then yesterday was a 9, and so fortunately it was one of those things that they missed the mark on it, and it missed us to the south. It never got warm enough, thank God.
I'm surprised because a lot of people in my neighborhood, they told me they were kind of making light of it, being like, oh, it won't be that bad. We'll go out on the lawn and watch it as it flies by us. And apparently that's what they said they did years ago. Of course,
that's what we call stupid people.
I don't know if those people were there in 2011. You weren't here in 2011, right? So
no,
I don't know.
I was not, but my father was, and the storm went right past his house, and he watched it. I mean, tornadoes are something that if you're not careful and you don't give them the amount of respect they deserve, they could certainly be harmful. So, anybody, Connor, throw our graphic up if you can. If you've got comments, questions, anything like that, we'd love to get some interaction going today. Everybody who's out there watching, let's get some COVID-19 questions. Maybe let's get some coronavirus questions. Throw any question at us. You ask Molly what she did this weekend. I mean, I'll tell you nothing but Mario Kart and Twitch. She's a gamer officially, by the way.
I was over at a friend's house too. There is this wellness center that you can go to in Huntsville now and pay to get that antibody test, but it's $50. So my husband originally was gonna go, and then he's like, I don't know if it's worth it for that much money, but
it'd probably be worth it.
For sure, people would pay.
We just got a comment from Kent Daniel Villavicencio. What's going on, Kent? He says he's joining us from Chantilly, Virginia. That's the stomping grounds of one Zachary Stanton Walker back in the day where I grew up. Hey, if you are a Chantilly or a Virginia person, let me tell you something. The Apple House up there in Front Royal, they have just decided to start shipping their apple donuts. Don't worry, I ordered you some.
I got 2 dozen.
Yeah, I got 2 dozen on the way.
So how happens when I have your email?
Yeah, well, that's right. I mean, somebody asked me if I got my email, and I said, well, I haven't checked my email since Molly started working, so no, I haven't is the answer. And if you got a reply, it wasn't for me. Don't tell anybody. But no, so we.
I'll tell you if it's important.
That's right. Well, that's why you have good people around you, and then life gets easier. So
right.
So if you have a comment, question, if you want to talk about coronavirus, there's a ton to talk about there. It looks like we're about to start opening things back up, and economies are going to start to open back up. Texas has already lifted some of their things, and so again, it goes back to the question that we've been discussing since we started this podcast or this live stream, this whatever you want to call it. It's the economy versus the virus and the ramifications of both of those. And I think that what we're seeing now is the ramifications of the decisions we've made and what they're going to look like. Again, we've talked about it, but 47% of small businesses will never reopen is a number that's being thrown around. And so the question is, I saw a graphic and I put it out the other day, but I saw a graphic that it was, again, it's I wish I would have sent it to you, Connor, because I wish you could have put it up, but let me pull it up here. It's on my Facebook page, but basically it's the way that the news media manipulates minds and thoughts with visual information, right? And so let me show you this graphic.
Is it on your Facebook page?
Yeah. Let me look. Yeah. It basically said that it had the case numbers of percentage of people who have it, like, but again, they just did it as a big number, and it obviously, here it is right here. Okay, so on the 28th of March, the USA was leading the world with 123,313 cases, and so they had this big beautiful chart, and if you keep scrolling down, Connor, keep scrolling down, right there, that graphic right there, if you can get that on the screen, that would be fantastic. But they have this graphic of number of cases. There it is. So visually speaking, we have 123,313 cases. And then this person, whoever put this out, said that on the right, we have recreated the image with the same numbers, but expressed as a percentage of the country's total population. One, obviously, visually manipulated in a way to make it look one way, and the other visually manipulated, both manipulated, right? But one manipulated one way, one manipulated the other way. And so I think it goes back to a bigger thing. Bill Graham joining us. What's up, Big Bill? I know you'll chime in and help us out with some comments and questions, but it goes to the whole concept of like the news media in general. They all have an agenda, some agenda, one way or the other. And again, we're not sitting here talking left, right, up, down, center, whatever. We're talking about in general, because that's where you and I typically land on these things, right? We're debating them from a higher level, not about, it's not a right or a left thing. But like, I'd be curious to hear, like, you're in science, you're an academic, like, which one's more accurate? I mean, because they're both technically right. They're both factual. But obviously, if you look at it the other way, we are the second least in terms of percentage of our population. So we went from being the world leader with the most amount of COVID-19 cases by number expressed in a graph to make us look like we were far and away the worst to literally the second least by looking at the numbers as a percentage of our population.
Well, you have to remember that the job and role of the news is to get you to come back. So they want you, it's like it's a
Let's
business.
back up. The job of the news is to report the news.
Mind. Well, in their mind.
The goal is to get you to come back. Why? Sponsors, money, business. Right. I get all that. So
if you feel assured in, whatever they're saying, then you might not come back. So the goal is, it's like a TV show. They got to give a cliffhanger so that you come back. So I don't know if that's the goal of every single individual, but that might be the broader goal of people that are coming out with these numbers.
Well, I think at the end of the day, it goes to express. I mean, there's a lot of political things that have happened in the span of this virus that people can debate, and they can do this and they can do that, and stimulus check this, stimulus check that. Democrats block this, Republicans try to. I mean, you can get all into that if you want to, but the reality is, if we look at just the numbers, if we look at just the more people will have died from almost everything in our country this year than COVID-19 when it's all said and done. Now, so what does that mean? Does that mean that what we did was great and it worked and we should be proud and we should be going back to work? Does that mean that it wasn't as bad as we thought it was and it was spun in a way to create fear and create a response? And those are all questions we can't answer. We can debate them all day long, but we can't answer them because we don't know the heart of the people that made the rules and that made the decisions.
And it's such a collective mindset.
But is it? Or is it a vocal minority?
Maybe. I don't know. Because it's the news media, buying into it, and then the whole community of people in the U.S. are
folks. You're
afraid.
You're watching growth right now, and
I'm just saying that it's not necessarily that they're intentionally doing it, but it's a snowball effect. Well, no, is one person pushing the single snowball and then everybody else falling down the hill together.
Okay, so and I would argue that what creates that is literally the sheeple mentality, right?
Right. No, that's what it is.
People will consume information and say, "Oh, okay, well that's a fact," and move on.
Oh, yeah.
And so my opinion would be, where I stand on this whole thing is like, it's time to go back to work. It's time to get this like let's take the people in our population who are at risk and say, look, you need to protect yourself. You need to stay home. You don't have to go out. We haven't gone out in a while. I mean, DoorDash or whatever. It's a fantastic service. They bring Walmart to us whenever we need it. I mean, there's ways to protect yourself and get all that, which I hate to burst your bubble here, but the DoorDash people that go to Walmart and bring your groceries back, if you don't disinfect every single bit of that before it ever comes in your house, this is serious. Like, think about this. Here's the conversation we had the other day. People were like, well, we need to self-quarantine because of X, Y, and Z. And so they go into this period of quote unquote self-quarantine. But let's say there's a group of 5 people, okay? And those 5 people all independently don't self-quarantine as much as maybe like, what does quarantine mean? By yourself. You're not exposing yourself to anybody else. You're not going out. You're not doing anything like that. So if you're going to quote unquote self-quarantine and then go and expose yourself to guy A, guy B, guy C, and guy D, well, guess what? Guy D, he was just exposed to A, B, and C. And so my thing is, and Keith and I were talking about this morning, when this whole thing started, I looked at my wife and I said this. I said, Ashley, like, if we are going to worry about this, if this is going to be a big problem for us, then we need to act this way.
Right.
If we're going to act this way, we can no longer be worried about this, because the level of commitment that it takes to a personal protective plan. Like, when I was in the military, we did our MOP training. We did our all the chemical warfare training. Like, you learn the process of decontamination and hot. Like, if you wanted to do it right in your house, you would have what's called like a hot zone, which is everything outside of your perimeter. Right. Then you would have your warm zone, which is where you come in from the hot zone, you disrobe, whatever that word is, right? And you get rid of, if you have gloves, you get rid, if you have masks, you dispose, you take all your clothing off that would be contaminated, you put it in the warm room, and then you step into the cool, or the safe zone, as it were, which would be inside your house. But the level of commitment that takes that's been my issue with this whole thing from the beginning.
But are people not doing that because they don't know any better, or are people not doing that because they only half believe that it's really an issue?
Either way, it's a problem, right?
No, but it's just like, I want to give people the benefit of the doubt that they're not.
But it's not the people. It's not the people.
No, but like, there was a viral video that it showed you how to contaminate your groceries, and it showed you like how to have a hot zone, and he had it all sectioned off on his table where he had, with the gloves, you had to pull out the cereal and dump and soak your produce for an hour and blah blah blah. It was by a doctor who was describing how to sterilize.
So
basically sterilizing
Dr. Produce, we'll call him.
Right, but it went viral, but I don't think everybody that shared that video and liked that video was necessarily doing that to their groceries.
But again, I think we're talking about two different things, and the heart of the issue is what I'm trying to attack. Is the heart of the issue is like this is not going to be popular. I'm debating whether or not even say this. Bill, if you're out there, please join me here. I know you and I are probably close. My
mom, she said 39% of COVID patients were 18 to 44 in New York.
Yeah, New York is its own. Yeah, well, because a couple of things happened in New York, and Cuomo's come out and talked about some of the things he wished he would have done differently. I mean, there was a lot, but the population density has proven to be the most significant factor in a lot of our quote unquote. You look at New Orleans, and Mardi Gras wasn't stopped. Okay. Right. And so you have this huge population density issue that then leads to this huge outbreak. New York City, I mean, you've got these high-rise buildings with, 30 units on each building that are all sharing the same elevator. They're all sharing the same parking garage. And so that's a totally different ballgame. You go out in the middle of Montana, and I bet you're not seeing, the same kind of infection rates. Recovery rates are a whole different ballgame. And right now they're looking to be around 98.64%, which would mean we're like 1.45 mortality rate, so 1.5%. Again, please don't hear me saying that I think this thing shouldn't have been taken seriously from the beginning. I do, and I think a lot of the things that were put in place have saved lives, have done what they were supposed to do. My contention has been, and has always been from the beginning, to take the economy and put it in a place of equal importance, not to lives. I'm never going to say that. I don't mean that, and if that's how that comes across, that's not what I'm trying to say. What I am saying is the way that we view America, the America that we had before this started will never be the same. It's going to take years to undo what's been done economically to this country. That being said, we should walk down a path of understanding both of the equations, right? And I think that's what they're trying to do. You even saw Dr. Fauci came out yesterday or Friday and said he's quote unquote cautiously optimistic that things will start to begin opening back up on the first of the month.
Well, what's hard for businesses, and I heard a lot of this when this first started, that the reputation of businesses that stay open longer than they should, according to, general consensus in Fauci, will have their reputation forever tarnished as the company that put, their profit above their
I think a lot of that depends on demographic, though, right?
No, I know, but because that's a message that's being widely spread, it's going to be really hard for these businesses. I think, PR wise, they're going to have a hard time debating to be the first one that reopens.
Okay,
I don't know.
Let me give you a situation here. Again, very unpopular, and I never got to take my unpopular opinion there, and I'll get back to it. I promise. Because no, it's fine. I wanted to address your mom's comment. One of our two viewers, your mom and my mom. But no, I'm kidding, Lorraine. I love you. But Lowe's, for instance.
Okay. Yeah.
Lowe's put out a sales ad last week.
Yeah, they had their flash. What was it? Friday.
Yeah.
Black Friday sale.
I'm talking about not Black Friday. That'd be in November, but close.
No,
we'll call it the spring.
That's what.
Really?
Ross told me it was a Black Friday. Somebody told me that it was a Black Friday sale.
Sorry, buddy. No, so, because Keith and I have had this conversation. Like, the Lowe's parking lot has been loaded down since this thing started.
Andy Witt said that on Facebook.
Yeah.
Our
And
congressman.
so I'm curious if what you're contending is accurate. Because if that's the case, Lowe's would have a tarnished reputation because they put profit. If they wanted to follow the order, they would have said, hey, let's go pros only. Let's shut down the public operation, and let's support the industries that are 100% essential per the governor, per the Department of Defense, because we were deemed essential by the Department of Defense. And so that was a federal mandate that came out that governors could have chosen to follow or not, obviously, because, the whole federal,
right.
thing. Anyways, neither here nor there.
That's just a risk they're going to have to take.
Right. And so, but my question to you is this. Bingo.
That's what
Bingo.
I'm getting at.
So that's my point. Yeah. Is small businesses that are the first to open back up are going to have a PR nightmare to deal with because they're putting profit above people, when the reality is the big box, the one with the lobby money, the one that can support the politicians and make the seven-figure, they can do whatever they want and not risk it. You know why? Because you need them. Yeah. You need them. And that's the problem that we're dealing with right now is that it's just a matter of again, my contention is this: open the state. Let's start strategically making decisions to get people back to work. I think people are going to start fighting a little bit here pretty soon. I think time will tell, but I think we saw the peak yesterday.
Fighting to go or fighting not to go back to work?
No, I think business owners are going to start to open businesses back up.
Do you think employees are going to be fighting to
I think employees are going to be fired up. They have freaking jobs and paychecks coming in, because let me tell you something, $1,200 doesn't go very far if you live a normal life, right?
I'm curious.
No, I think I would bet you money that there's a ton of employees right now that are just bummed they don't have a job. Like I would be.
No, but those that are working from home, those that still have their corporate job,
then they can stay home. They're not the ones I'm talking about. No, because the economy's still churning there. If you have the ability to continue working from home, great, work from home. But if you're a small business owner, you don't have the ability to go remote, especially if you're a service or a furniture store or anything of anything of those natures. It's just crazy. And so I think that a very unpopular opinion. Don't send any angry emails to me. I will not reply. Molly will not reply. Let's be honest. She reads my email. Guys, the response was worse than the virus. There it is. I said it. I'm going to get it out there. Now, that being said, I think the certain parts of the response were absolutely necessary. And I have supported the things that I felt were from day one. Have I not? I've said, hey, that's fine. Let's protect and I've not bucked the rules. We've followed the rules.
No, I'm not worried about us.
I know. I'm going to say that when this is all said and done, even Fauci kind of starting to you just feel the flipper flopper politician stuff starting to happen a little bit, because we slammed the brakes on this thing. And so one of two things is going to have to happen. We're going to have to say, wow, slamming the brakes shut on this is what stopped the spread. And then credit's going to have to be given to someone that a lot of people don't want credit given to. And we've already, I'm not saying good, bad, or indifferent. I'm just saying, I'm just talk through it. Mm-hmm. You either have to address that, one, what was prescribed worked, or two, the virus wasn't as bad as we thought it was, and we overprescribed, and then we put the downfall of the downturn of the economy
people
where
knew that going in.
Do
right?
what?
People knew that in the beginning, right? They were like, what's better if we put all these people's lives at risk, or if we over prepare and then we say, it ends up not being as bad as we thought. No, that's a conversation that I heard a lot. They were like, what's better, to risk people's lives or risk that we over prepare?
Julie Roger joined. What's up, girl? Julie Ann now, not Roger, but that's how I know her. She was my girlfriend in 3rd grade. It was a big deal. Sorry, babe. I know you're watching too. I love you. But no, so yes and no. Like, that conversation wasn't had openly. It was had, like we talked about it on the first couple of days of the show. It was had behind closed doors, certainly, but no politician wants to stand in front of a crowd of people. It's not a sexy soundbite to say, like, well, how many lives are too many lives? Like, we'll let 100,000 people die as long as we don't collapse the economy. That, you're right. Mm-hmm. That's the conversation that was being had by politicians behind closed doors, was what is the level of acceptable loss, because we're in war. Like, I've said it 100 times. We invoked the Defense Spending Act. We did a bunch of wartime things. We called this a war. Well, when you go to war, people die. And there are percentages of troops that you are calling acceptable loss. Believe it or not, there's also percentages of civilians that are called acceptable loss in war, because in wartime, bad things happen.
I think that's what it is, though, because nobody in here is enlisting in. I guess the medical professionals,
bingo.
Maybe.
No. You're absolutely, you nailed it.
Yeah.
That's exactly right. It's a matter of what, and this is my problem. Like, it's a matter of what people can tolerate. It's what they want to hear. Like, can people, you can't handle the truth,
well, it's
right?
Like snipers that have to decide, I mean, you would know this from being in the Army, right?
Nope, this is the second time we've done it. Oh, we're talking about snipers. You must know all about it. You were in the Army. I was a medic, but sure. Yeah, lay it on me.
No, but you know those movies. What's that movie?
Yeah, I watch lots of movies.
No, but there was
I can shoot a deer rifle.
It's called Sniper, right? Where he has to choose. He's told about a target, and he doesn't know if it's really that person, and he has to choose whether or not to shoot them or not.
So,
and
yeah, I mean, that's a pretty, yeah,
saying,
okay, sure.
In a way, the governors and the president have to be that person of, like, do I make sure, do I let that person die, or do I
kill the economy?
Right. Yeah, you got to decide.
Well, and that was the debate we had early on in this thing, was like, okay, suicide rates, what's going to happen to them? Healthcare for unemployed or homeless, because that's going to happen. If we kill the economy, we're going to kill this whole section over here. And then what happens to those people? Is there legitimate, and this isn't a hypothetical, it's not a fake, it's real life. Is there threat to their health by the economy going in the tank? And I think we established, even when we talked, like, yeah, I mean, what healthcare for homeless people is non-existent. Suicide rates have already gone up. There's a Tennessee sheriff that's saying he was in more homes 2 weeks ago for suicides than he'd been in for homicides all year. Wow. Like, it was because, again, there are a lot of people, and this is wrong, and gets to the heart of the issue, but, like, your identity is not caught up in what you do for a living and how much money you make and all those things. Like, I know the world tells you very, very quickly that how much you can go shopping, or how much money you make, or how much you can buy, or how many paintings you have on your wall, or how many acres you have, or how many bedrooms you have. None of that matters. None of that matters. Your identity and your worth is completely tied up in who God made you to be. Right. And your worth comes from that. We are all made in his image, and there's value in that. And so, again, it comes back to that issue we're talking about, like, okay, lives versus economy. What's the downside of if the economy hits the tank? Well, there's going to be some health consequences for that, and vice versa. And so I think we've just tried to walk this whole like line.
Right.
And I don't know.
It's hard, though, because I feel like
it's
when it
really
comes
hard
to finding your worth in monetary things, money, things in your house, they're much more tangible. I feel like if you want to find your identity in Jesus, you have to actively pursue it to feel the effects of it, right? Like, you can't passively, live your life in faith.
You can't yeah, you're right.
For that to fill that void, that then it end up being filled by monetary things. Like, I don't know. It's hard. I wish that there was more, I guess, discipleship and how we're supposed to implement that in a way that we feel as fulfilled as we do when we don't feel fulfilled when we do it with monetary things, but when we think that we're being fulfilled by
no, that's absolutely right. And I'll address that for a moment, because that's something that you brought up, and you wish that there was something that was out there. And so let me be a resource momentarily. Like, my entire worth was tied up in what I did for a living. My entire worth was tied up in my ability to earn an income, to be able to spend money on whatever I want to spend, drive the biggest, baddest truck, have the nicest Harley Davidson, have whatever in my life. And 5-6 years ago, like, I was humbled to the point of having nothing but my wife and my faith in Christ, which at the time was non-existent. And so let me just go ahead and tell you that yeah, there's a gap. Like, now, again, I've been saying it from day one, God is going to use this. He's been using this. Like, churches are being forced to learn how to embrace technology to reach a generation of people who probably will never darken the door of a church. And we as people have been made to slow down and spend time with our family and invest in our children and invest in our wives and our marriages and our relationships, because at the end of the day, like, our work is gone. It's been taken from us. It's been pulled away by nothing at all. In 2008, everybody talks about 2008 and the Great Depression. Those were financial problems caused by financial decisions in a lot of ways. This was a health thing that had nothing. The economy was churning. I mean, it was just moving right along. We had 20,000 jobs coming into town. We were selling houses like it was going out of style. And all of a sudden, an unforeseen act of God, as your insurance company would call it, an act of God caused this slowdown, caused this thing to just grind to a halt. And you say, well, yeah, now there's a void in my life. And let me tell you, like, people, if you're listening, like, God used that. He did. I'm not saying he did it because of that, but he certainly is going to use that if you'll allow him to. And a relationship with him is as easy as seeking it. It's as easy as asking for it. And I'm telling
you, like,
you do.
You just passively.
It doesn't just happen. You don't just wake up one morning and just like, I love Jesus. Like, no, it doesn't happen that way. But let me tell you something. If you're empty right now and you're void of emotion, of joy, of hope, like, let me urge you to, like, read the book of James. Like, just get a Bible, read James. I call that the dummy's guide for a Christian. Like, it's my favorite book in the Bible. I love everything about it. Go read it. It's very easy to read. It's not he, thou, thee, thou, thouest. Like, it's very straight up, just straightforward. And read that and go see how that impacts your life. But no, you're right. And so at the end of the day, like, we find ourselves here now saying, okay, I think everybody's kind of starting to admit we're on the backside of this. In some capacity, In some capacity. And I think the numbers are going to continue to show that, to hopefully, heaven forbid it's not the case, but hopefully it's the case. So now the question becomes, and what we need to attack the rest of way. Ooh, your mom's, put that comment up there right now. Yeah. Was it an act of God or an act of man? Well, that depends on if you believe the I ate a bat theory or not. So to answer that question, I've been reading a lot of information on a virology lab in Wuhan, China.
Okay.
And there is a tremendous amount of, I hesitate to say, like, evidence, but certainly some pretty hard evidence that it very well may not have come from that that bat. Okay. That Wuhan,
the wet market?
Yeah, the wet market, which is where the bat was bought, consumed, yada yada yada. That's where we were told. So there was also some information came out yesterday that said we had intercepted some
knowledge.
Yeah, from China. 21 million cellular accounts were closed in the last month. Why would a cellular account be closed? Because someone's deceased.
Well, I know how to close cellular accounts.
I know, but think about it.
It's quite a process.
Think about it. 20 million people could have died in China. I'm not saying that's true or not, but there's
Why would they intentionally kill their people? Well, okay, yeah. I guess it's a bad question to ask when it comes to China, right? I'm trying to get buffed up on my China history. That's what I've been trying to do all day. Yeah.
That's what? I thought we were working today.
We were. Oh, okay. I know in the background I had that documentary going.
And another comment. God allows evil to prevail. No, but God certainly allows evil. Look, death, evil. I mean, very early, Genesis chapter 3, right? Very early, God gave the serpent the ability to. Here's what happened. Here's where it all started. Lorena was that Satan, the serpent, looked at Eve and Adam and said, "Did God really mean that? Did God really say not to eat from that tree? Did God really? Why would God do that? He's got all these other trees and this great tree, the best tree in here. God, he wouldn't want you to not eat from that. And so they did, right? Because they questioned God, right? And so the answer to your question, God absolutely allows and uses evil. My 20-plus-year-old son died in a Jeep accident. Like, why would God allow that to happen? Because God brought people to faith in Christ through his death. And so everything that happens while God, you hear this a lot. You hear this all the time. People will say like, I got saved when I was young, and then I went out and I sowed my wild oats, and then I came back to Jesus. And the real truth to that is they didn't get saved and then go out and act unsaved. Like, they got religious or they got whatever, fill in the blank, but they didn't enter into that relationship with him, right? And so, like, go ahead.
I just think that something I've been very, I guess, encouraged by is seeing all these churches spreading more messages that are practical for people. Because something that's been really an issue, I think, for a lot of millennials or people who have left the church. I don't know, maybe any young people. When you're young, you don't go to church as much as you do when you're old. Just statistically, there's more older people in the church than young.
Well, it's easy to want to go to heaven when you're getting close to death. I'm just being honest.
I've appreciated how I feel like more churches have made more of an effort to make their messages applicable in this time, because they understand that people are in need. But people are always in need, and people always need to know how they can actually implement, like, I guess, what's
so I would take issue with that. Okay. I would take issue with that, because I would say that any church that's changing their message based on this is not a church that I would have anything to do with. The message of the gospel is the same. It's the same today as it was yesterday, and it'll be the same next year as it was last year. And so what I think you're seeing is not so much people changing their messages, but rather the access to the information is so prevalent now. Yeah. A lot of churches that didn't have live streaming platforms, that didn't have, like, all of a sudden, out of nowhere, they're like, if we want to reach our people, we have to be able to live stream. How are we going to do that? And so I've gotten 4 calls from different churches. I mean, you noticed I'm gone all the freaking time, because I'm helping in Decatur. I'm trying to get these churches learning how to do what we do here on a grand scale. And so at the end of the day, what I think you're seeing is not so much the gospel changing.
People, I guess, focusing on that.
One, yes. 2, I would say also be very cautious. And for anyone that's listening, be very cautious, because there are lots of, and I could name names, and I'm not, because I'm sure someone's listening that probably says that's my pastor. But, like, there are some pastors that everyone would probably, local or even regional, that are big time players, that share a message of self-help, of faith equals money. There's 100 things out there right now that are really prevalent that a lot of people would call applicable lessons. And so I would just be very cautious. Anyone out there listening, I would be very cautious as you watch these church services. Now, look, yesterday was like, I thought I was like on Church Book, not Facebook. Like, it was just Easter service, because the biggest church day of the year without a church service, except for that idiot in Louisiana, which... Don't even get me started on that guy. You heard about him? No, he packed the church with like 1,300 people. Like, guy, there's a difference. Yeah. There's a difference in
South Carolina. I saw pictures. People were at church on my Facebook feed.
In a church or at a drive-thru?
No, in a church.
Yeah, well, look, and look, the day's coming for that. I'm going to tell you right now, on May the 1st, if churches aren't open back up, there are going to be a lot of churches that take exception to because the numbers don't support the COVID numbers do not support. Right. Ooh, your mom is just, oh, gosh. Lorena, you and I have more in common than you think. When are you going to call this show and talk to me? I'm not that scary, by God. Come on. Yes. Name them, girl. Like, preach. Amen.
You don't think churches are going to get backlash if they were to open up before they were allowed to?
No. I think after the 1st, I think everyone's going to be, and I know for me, I'll tell you where I stand on it straight up.
I know where we stand on it.
I'll tell you exactly where I stand on it. On the 1st of May. We will open the economy back up. We will open the churches back up. The numbers are not going to support staying closed any longer. We're going to be watch what happens. I've been saying this from the beginning, and everybody's like, oh, he's crazy. He's crazy. Turns out I might be smarter than I look, which I know doesn't say a whole lot, but it says a little bit, okay? The numbers are going to start this number right here. Here's something to think about. On Easter, on the resurrection day, Jesus rolled the stone away and emerged from the tomb. He chose that day to peak the deaths of COVID-19. A lot of people with no hope have no hope. They're jobless. They could be homeless before long. They're moneyless. And they have no hope right now that this virus has stolen their hope. And if this were to be the case, which obviously we won't know for another few weeks, but if God used Easter as the peak of this virus to roll that tomb away and bring everybody back out of the darkness, like, just how powerful is that? Like, again, I'm not saying God said, hey, take this, America, here's COVID-19. That's not what, I'm not that idiot, okay? I'm not that guy. What I am saying is this stuff happens. God gave us all free will and the ability to choose and make decisions for ourselves, and we will pay the consequences for those either here or there, right? But when those things happen, God will use those things, right? And that's what I was saying earlier with the whole testaphony thing, right? Like, well, I got saved when I was 9, and then I went and did whatever I wanted and did drugs and did this and did that, and then I came back to church. Well, guess what? That's a testaphony, not a testimony, right? Like, when you get saved, your life radically changes, right? And so it's just, I don't know. It's just this whole thing of, my phone's ringing. Sorry, that caught me off guard. This watch just gets me. I'm right in the middle of it too. That's God's way of telling me to stop preaching. But no, like, look, at the end of the day, I think we're really close. I think we're coming out of this thing. I think there's a tremendous amount of hope right now. I have hope because Lorena doesn't hate me anymore, so that's awesome.
She never hated you.
I know she didn't. I'm just, well, Lorena, I'll tell you why. Your daughter told me that you didn't like me, okay?
No, I said she wasn't going to call, and then you took that as an insult.
Well, there was more to that conversation, but I won't put you on blast. Look, at the end of the day, guys, we are super excited that we are hopefully on the backside of this thing. We are about to take this hometown. We might do a show later this week and just tell you what the plan is with this, because this has gotten a tremendous response, and we're excited to see what we can do with this. We're talking about maybe taking it to the radio a little bit, there's a lot of things we're talking about doing right now, because we want to take this hometown heartbeat concept and really develop it here in our hometown and really use it as a way for us to come out of the darkness of coronavirus and just jump back into just like marketing and explode. Like, I mean, let's go talk to these small business owners. Let's go collect stories from, hey, what was it like? What did you get your CARES Act money? Did things work out like we're promised? Not from a biased perspective, not from a liberal or Republican perspective, but just from a like human interest. A human interest. She would make me cry. Yeah, you're going to have to work really hard to pull that one off. I can assure you that. But I'd let you give me your best shot. And we would do it in a respectful and loving way. But no, I mean, we want to come at this from a human interest perspective and just say, like, hey, what was it like? What was the darkness like? Because it has been very dark for a lot of people right now.
Right. And
so, like, let's just take this. So anyways, I say all that to say, like, we're really excited to see where this thing goes. And Molly and I have had a great time learning I mean, she hasn't worked here that long. And so this was kind of one of those things where she comes in and then all of a sudden I'm like, well, no one else can be in here. So like, I guess since we're quarantined, like, let's do this thing. And like, really, like we've learned. It was
nerve-wracking, but I feel like the more you do it, the more.
Well, yeah. And we've learned each other, and we've learned how to respect one another and how to disagree the right way. And I think that's a lesson that a lot of people need to know right now, because again, you're told to hate people that don't look or act or sound or whatever like you. And that's just bogus. And so at the end of the day, like we're super excited. We thank you for tuning in and being a part of this, because really oh, I'm lying. I would sit here and talk to the wall by myself if there was nobody out there. But
I hope everybody is safe. I know a lot of tornado. There was a girl I know in Chattanooga,
Mississippi, Monroe.
In Chattanooga, her house was completely flattened. So I know there's a lot of people hurting out there, not just because of the COVID-19, but now on Easter Sunday as well, a tornado that just went completely across the, southeast.
Yeah,
so
well, and
does it usually go so east?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Thank God it didn't get warm enough. I mean, we were bunkered down, but the reality is I've never had a tornado happen that cold, and so the heat, the 1,000 kilogram per whatever, there's 1,000 joule per kilogram number. If it gets above that, then you're exponentially. I dabble in amateur weather isms. What's the word I'm looking for? Meteorology. There it is. Weatherism. What's that?
If it gets above 65 degrees, the atmosphere becomes unstable.
It's a little warmer than that. But I'm not going to argue with you here on the show, because we would never do that. Guys, look, at the end of the day, we are super pumped for another Monday edition of day 1762 of the pandemic. We are your pandemic headquarters.
Ask us your questions. Tell us what you want us to discuss.
Yeah, I mean, because we don't mind having a literally one-way conversation with Lorena, but we would love to at least add one more person to the mix. So, Lorena, thank you so much for joining you. We love you too. And, you know, anything you need from us, call us 256-BUY-SELL or info@cottonrow.com. Guys, we'll talk to you later. Get us out of here, Connor.